Hello, everyone. This is David Muniz. Welcome to another Senha Segura webinar. Today, we are going to talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning in identity protection, safeguarding against cyber threats. And again, I have here with me my great friend and colleague, Guilherme Goulart. Hey, Guilherme, how are you, my friend?
Hi, David. Hello, everyone. I'm good. How about you? Actually,
I'm
I'm really pleasant to be here again to talk about artificial intelligence with you and also, really important matters regarding security.
Well, it's never enough to talk about artificial intelligence. And I think since our last talk, I think lots of things have changed. So it is important to constantly bring this subject up. Well, and especially now where we see all this technological advancement and the continual evolving of this subject. Well, we understand that artificial intelligence, machine learning bring unprecedented opportunities and challenges. And these tools are redefining our world. And well, cybersecurity uses artificial intelligence a lot, and we have previously talked about these topics. Well, and I think I think the first topic that we need to cover now is that uh, artificial intelligence can be used not only by malicious attackers, but also to protect the infrastructure against these cyber threats. So I want to cover first, Guilherme, how do you think, what are the main topics, what are the main strategies, and how artificial intelligence and machine learning can be used to perform those cyber attacks?
Yeah, the first thing I would like to bring here is that the way that people use artificial intelligence has been changed over the years. So if you look back into 2 or 3 years ago, you would see that people use artificial intelligence to create recommendations, suggest, and things like that. But now what they do is that artificial intelligence has become powerful and it is capable of just creating new things out of zero. So you build a machine learning routine, and the artificial intelligence is capable of creating things from zero. But a long time ago, like years ago, it would only help you with pre-existent matters and material resources and etc. So cyber attacks is really something that ever always existed, and but a lot of people see things like ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence tools as a way of creating new things, but never ever stop to think about cyber attacks. So artificial intelligence is really difficult for you to say what is wrong and what is right. So if you want, I'm going to use ChatGPT because it's a tool that everyone knows and it can do almost everything you ask it to do. OpenAI impose some, compliance and regulatory politics about, the language you use, the purposes of your prompt and everything. But there are ways to, to over it, so troll it. So if you use ChatGPT, you can ask for the ChatGPT to create a script for you, and you don't mention why the script is going to be used, and it is not going to ask for the purpose. It doesn't matter if you're using this to create a tag to a company or even to use for your own purpose. So it's really about the person that is using it. Right now, we have seen artificial intelligence has been used more for security, cybersecurity on organizations. So instead of waiting for the attack to come, you can ask the artificial intelligence to analyzes resources, data, networking analysis, and predict when attack's going to happen or not, and then you have a playbook that can build defenses and do everything to prevent attacking from happening. And this is not new. This is actually known for quite a years now, But using artificial intelligence for create malwares and virus is kind of new. It's a new thing. New, I mean, 1 year and a half, because if an attack would want to create a malware, the attack or the group of malicious people, they would need to build it from zero. But now they can ask artificial intelligence to build it for them and just do some minimal adjustments. So my thought about artificial intelligence and cyber attacks is that they are really possible, and really depends on what tool you're using, and about the person that is using it and how to use it. But it's totally possible.
Yeah. So, but it makes also more difficult for people to detect those cyber attacks, right? Because if you ask GPT to create an email, if malicious attackers ask ChatGPT to create an email to impersonalize a CEO or impersonalize someone from the organization, they will make a perfectly well, at least in terms of grammatic and the essence of the mail, that makes more convinced and more difficult for users to detect, right?
Yes, we know about UX writing. So UX writing is a way of you talking to your customer, but also a way of you setting your own tone and voice when you write down. So if you describe the way the person itself writes to the artificial intelligence, um, it will be possible to the artificial intelligence to write over and over using the same tone and pitch. So the person that is getting the mail on the other side, you never suspect about if it's created by artificial intelligence or not. And since you mentioned that, there is also now ways of using artificial intelligence to mimics or copy your voice, which is really crazy. Like you can get a phone call from your boss, and it's actually not your boss, but artificial intelligence has been trained with his voice, and he could say absurd things or things to deceive you, or maybe um, social engineering attacks. It's really about that. I have seen cases where you have voice of people from companies of services that you contract, calling you and say you like, hey, your bank account was needs some adjustments and things like that, and it's actually your bank manager saying that, and the person voice, the voice of your manager. So you do not suspect about that, but it can be only artificial intelligence and someone manipulating it behind.
Yeah, we've been talk about the deep fakes, right? That for those who don't know, this strategy is called deep fakes. Is where you produce videos or voice audios to personalize people. That could be a CEO asking to make a wire transfer, or just someone from the organization asking you to do something. But you also can, for example, generate code for malwares like ransomware. And we've been talking about a tool that has been out on the internet that they call it the exclusive chat GPT for pen testers and hackers. So can you tell us more about this tool?
Sure, sure. So I heard about this too when I was on LinkedIn and also on the forums about artificial intelligence and pen testers. It's called Warm GPT, and it's actually a paid tool. So we know that the slogan is that is made for pen testers, but it can be also used for people that want to create, any kind of malware. It's not really they control it, but it just proves our point. It's exclusive ChatGPT for attackers and pen testers. So you can really use, OpenAI technology to create a tool that you always create, hacks and malwares and worms and anything else you need. The difference here is that you train you do the machine learning way of that the OpenAI technology also always look for ways to create new and more advanced attacks. Instead,
Yeah.
it would be different from use ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is expect anything. You can ask anything ChatGPT, but warm GPT was trained to expect prompts that ask for a technology, a script, a backdoor, or things like that. Analysis is a way of hacking some environment or people, and they are built for different purposes, and the technology behind is trained for different purposes as well. But it's not difficult to create something like that today. If you use OpenAI's API, you can train your own way and make it in a way that I'm gonna use you for hacks and pen testers, and you're gonna behave this way from now on. So you know um,
Yeah.
if someone wanted to create an artificial intelligence a year ago or even more, that person would need to know some language program like Python, R, or understand about neural networks. But now it does not need. It's even easier. You have a service that already does it for you. All you have to do is train the artificial intelligence with prompts. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to know how to data works or routine machine learning works. You just need to train it, and you do everything you want. You don't need to pay for database. You don't need to pay for servers. You just pay for the API calls that you do. So it's pretty accessible, and you can do everything you want with that. The people, the company itself doesn't, control it.
Yeah, and well, we the tools are there, and they can be used for both evil and also good. So at the same time that AI can be used for creating malware and creating social engineering attacks, they can also be used by cybersecurity teams to detect and respond to cyber threats. And the last time we didn't get the chance to see that, and after we spoke last time, Verizon really. Sorry, IBM released its 2023 cost of a data breach report, which brings us precious insights on the use of AI in cybersecurity. And an interesting finding on the report is that organizations that have an extensive use of security AI and automation, they have highest cost savings in comparison with an average cost of a data breach. So organizations that use AI and machine learning, they had an average cost of a data breach of $3.6 million. That is 1.76 or 9.3% less costs compared to organizations that have no use. And even organizations with a limited use of security and AI automation measured an average cost of a data breach of 4.04 million, which was 28% or 1.32 million less than those organizations with no use. And not only that, um, companies that used AI and automation were also able to identify and contain a breach in less time. While the average was 307 sorry 272 days 77 days, sorry, in average 277 days. Those that used automation and AI, they had 214 days. So that also means that they can contain and identify a security breach in a shorter time than organization with no use. And now let's go into the identity part of our conversation, because we know that credentials and stolen credentials are an important attack vector that are used by malicious attackers to perform data breaches. And now going to the Verizon report, which is the 2023 data breach investigations report, almost half of data breaches are performed through stolen credentials. So we understand that malicious attackers like a lot to perform cyber attacks through this attack vector, because whenever they have access with these credentials, they have pretty much a limited access in the infrastructure. They can move on laterally and perform even more damage. Usually they can steal those credentials on a initial access brokers on dark web, but they can also perform social engineering attacks through those emails. So, and now going to our question, webinar. What are we understand that, for example, multi-factor authentication is a good way, and I think it's a very cheap and easy way to increase security. And artificial intelligence can also be used to enhance traditional MFA, like verifying other aspects and not just enforcing MFA. They can we can use artificial intelligence, for example, to detect the typing pattern, the device usage, the login times. And here at Senha Segura, we have a feature called keystroke dynamic identity that can be used to detect provide real-time assessment based on the keystroke pattern. And we can, for example, from there, block the user or enforce any kind of additional layer of security. Now, what are the other artificial intelligence strategies that can be used to detect, to protect identities?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would like first to explain a little bit more and what is the difference between using artificial intelligence or not when we talk about authentication itself. So if you are, building a system and you gotta set, you're gonna start working for authentication and you do not have artificial intelligence to work with you, you're gonna have to identify and rule every if case. So you're gonna build if if the users types the word 3 times in a row wrong, what are gonna happen? Or if the use is in another region, what's gonna happen? And what if the use does not have MFA, and or it has MFA but it's all MFA or it's passwordless? You have to think about every step, what it can go wrong and what it can go right. And it is an endless list. It's about you assuming what's going to happen and detect every step that user could do. And it is pretty exhaustive and endless work, because you have to think about every attack that could happen. You need more people to help with that, because not only the developer that is working with that know about the cybersecurity. Usually you're going to need another person to help with that. And also when we talk about UX, so just to build an authentication process, you're gonna need 3 or 4 people to help you with that when you do not use artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is here to make cybersecurity more flexible. So instead of creating a rule for every case, for every problem, or everything that could go wrong with the user, you create artificial intelligence that can take its own decisions. So in case the users types 3 times the password wrong, and also it's in another region, you're gonna have trained artificial intelligence to decide which is better to add to and here we are talking about adaptive access. If it's better to get additional extra layer of security and authentication, so you get MFA or passwordless, or even mobile push and things like that. So the artificial intelligence is going to take care of it. You don't need to think about every step that a user could do. You just need to tell the artificial intelligence, hey, so my proposal is this, and I'm gonna give you some cases where you can train and decide what is better to do. So I would say that one of the ways that first, the I think the biggest way of using artificial intelligence for authentication is adaptive access. It's the future. People are going to start using it because it's less work, less cost, and more efficient, flexible, and dynamic. So I think it's something that is really coming, and it here to stay.
I
Uh,
totally, I totally agree with you. And I think um, when we say user experience, I think it's also a good way to say how artificial intelligence can improve the life of the user, because the user always see cybersecurity tools as a business disruptor and not a business enabler. So to reduce user friction, I think it's a good purpose to use artificial intelligence. And now explaining what you said about adaptive authentication. So that, well, AI-driven adaptive authentication considers a wide range of contextual factors that can be, for example, geolocation, IP address, device type, or even the way that the user interacts with the system. So this allows the systems to dynamically adjust the requirements based on the perceived risk level of login attempt. So let's say that I usually authenticating systems every day at 8 a.m. from the same system, from the same machine, from the same location. So why do I have to type an MFA every time that I log in? Because that will add some friction in my authentication process. Instead of that, if I travel to another location, or if my service desk changes my machine, and then I try to authenticate in the systems from a different time that I usually log in, then I think it makes more sense to enforce some type of authentication, like biometric or an MFA or a challenge, because that could be a risky uh, um, posture in my case. And I think artificial intelligence model, they have to learn and adapt over time. So as I think as they are more exposed to data and user behavior, they can recognize better genuine users and also spot fraudulent attempts.
Yes, agreed. And always I see people talking about adaptive access in a way that also always enhancing security, put adding more layers. And this is not really friendly, with users experience. But the thing is, you can use adaptive access to also help the user. So instead of always in every login attempt asking for the MFA, if the user is a no location, it's a no IP, if every rule and every fact identified by the artificial intelligence is safe, why would you ask for MFA? Of course, it's safer, but if you identify that is the person and it's using the same IP, the same location, and the same other facts, you can actually skip that part and help with the user experience. I have seen that a couple of times, and it's pretty good. So instead of always thinking about cybersecurity, it is need indeed, but you also have to think about user experience, because having people, teaching people about cybersecurity is not always enough. Because if you're talking with someone that is from the marketing team or even the HR team, etc., they don't see the systems in the same way we do. They don't see the criticality of the data they're accessing. It's just a way of, for them to do their work. Is not really critical, just it is for us. So yeah, I'm not saying that you should skip or stop doing some of those classes about cybersecurity and teaching people that work, your employees, about cybersecurity, because this is important. But the thing is that they would never see cybersecurity the same way that we do, the same way that we that work with data, we know the cost of a data breach. We have, we are inserted, we are merged in this market, and that's why we know better than them. We know that this is more important, and they're not gonna see it that way.
Yeah. And I think one another great challenge is to reduce the false positives, false negatives, and false positives. I think understanding the nuanced patterns of legitimate users, AI can reduce the number of false alarms. But I think that takes time. I think that the tool needs to be trained to understand how the user uses this tool, how they are like calibrated to understand what it is a potential threat in what is just an unusual behavior from the user. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
exactly. So we have talked about adaptive access. It's basically for use artificial intelligence to help you with authentication. But what about identity? So how to use artificial intelligence to know what is a valid identity, or some malicious people using the identity? Right now, we know that people they sell their identities on dark web, deep web to get money from this. So usually they get a job in a great company, in a big company, so they can sell their own identity, so their mail and password, their credential in dark web and get money from this. So how does the company knows if it is the legit user that is login, or an attacker that is logging in? So this is where user behavior, as you mentioned, they becomes handy. So you need to create ways to identify if the person that is doing that is legit is the same person. So just like Sanskrit has the keystroke, so you can identify the pattern of typing in the keyboard a pattern, but there are also a lot of ways of identifying that. So and here the artificial intelligence has a role of being monitoring all the time what is happening. And again, we don't want to create a list of rules and try to predict everything that's happening, because that's not going to work. You need to create a profile for each user, and the artificial intelligence is going to study each user, and then need to decide what is weird and what is strange for each user profile. And this is really important when we talk about privileged identities, and in specific, because they have access to everything. So it's even more difficult to the artificial intelligence knows to get to know what is valid and not valid if the user permissions have access to everything. So what is not valid to it? So it is the major point for attackers, and probably should be the major point for artificial intelligence to work.
Yeah. Well, we've talked now, we understand that user resistance can be a challenge, usability can be a challenge. So MFA can be inconvenient to user, and that can lead to resistance and adoption. We understand that false positives and negatives are also a challenge for implementing artificial intelligence tools for identity protections. What do you also see as other challenges that cybersecurity leaders must take into account to address when implementing artificial intelligence for identity protection?
I think for me, the first point, the first topic would be knowing what would, come handy to be done by the artificial intelligence and what is not. We have talked about this in our last webinar together, but not everything should be done by artificial intelligence. There are some actions that need to be made by a human, even though you need it to be done fast and in efficient way. But if unfortunately you cannot trust artificial intelligence to do everything you need. So we use the example of auto driving, right? The self driving. So it is good for the United States in some cases, but in other countries that wouldn't work. So here, for example, you have mentioned that using cybersecurity, artificial intelligence for cybersecurity, have made the time of response shorter, which is amazing. But the difference here is that if you don't use artificial intelligence, you need someone to, hey, something is happening and I need to do something. So there's a period there to notice when something's happening and it actually happened. So the artificial intelligence can detect that something happened right away and do something about it. That's why it detects the problem in shorter time. But if not, you have to wait for someone to notice what is happening before doing something. So, and it's still some used. So even though you have artificial intelligence implemented, you use what we call quarantine time. So you detect an attack, the artificial intelligence detects an attack, and then it blocks the user or the research that is being used and isolate it somewhere, and then text the administrator, send a mail or something like that. So the human can take the decision and not the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is gonna just isolate, stop from what is happening, but not do an action about this, because it can be a valid user trying to use an identity or a valid service account. It can be something valid. So if you have artificial intelligence to block or delete this credential, it can be you know harmful for your business itself. So I have seen some companies doing that. You use artificial intelligence just to detect and probably isolate or take um, the first step, so it cannot cause damages. But in the end, who is going to take the decision is some kind of administrator or the cybersecurity team.
I think before we just have, I think what is mentioned is just instead of having black lists and white lists, is creating the gray lists, right? It's not going to either opposites. It's not just allowing or blocking, it's creating the context of what the user is doing in the system to create a set of actions that is just not zero, is not a binary decision, right?
Yes, and I believe this is actually something pretty new. Most of the developer tools and even systems, web firewalls, even firewalls, they work with that rule, whitelist and blacklist. And I think it will take a lot of time for all of the components and technologies to work with that. But it is more efficient when you have a gray list. You don't deny access or allow access right away. You make a pre-analysis before doing that. But it's kind of difficult to apply that to your business at the moment. At least that's how I see that. If you use a firewall is just one of the big examples, but you have that in actually almost every system you see that needs to we have to work with managing access, web firewalls, or even solutions that prevent from DDoS attacks. They ask you to create some rules or even whitelist and blacklist. I think it would be quite complex for a DDoS solution to help you with a gray list. So I love the idea. It's really good, but I think it takes some time for it to be in house of some big companies over there.
Yeah. Well, and depending on the company and depending also on the vertical that they are, integrating artificial intelligence tools with their systems can be quite some challenges because we need to reconfigure this infrastructure to adapt and to connect with those solutions. So another challenge that leaders must consider is the compatibility issues that might arise that may require testing, troubleshooting, and how to integrate all of those solutions into the infrastructure. And now talking about Senha Segura, our open connectors allow and they're based on technology and not on vendor, they allow the integration of this solution with the whole infrastructure, even legacy systems. So we understand that this is a challenge and we contribute to at least mitigate this challenge.
Yes, the problem about integrating right now is that you should some companies, they are locked by a vendor, so they or they have two options: or they wait for the vendor to create some kind of artificial intelligence solution feature, or they switch, they stop using that vendor and just go to another one. So both of the ways, they're painful. The first one, you have to wait and you don't know when you're getting that kind of functionality or feature. The second option is also painful because you have all your infrastructure and rules and workflows built in one system, and you have to change and build everything again on this new system. So uh, I think it's really cool that Senha Segura is really attached to technology, not vendor. If you have an API, it's really common. Every enterprise software, it has an API feature, so you can integrate to your Microsoft AD, Azure directory, or the most used software in companies. So it comes pretty handy.
Yeah.
And most of the times, artificial intelligence be like agent, so it can be in any kind of environment, and that's why we can use it even legacy device. Most of the legacy device, they don't even give support for some of standard protocols like SSH, or some other servers they only accept telnet. And how do you apply artificial intelligence to something that old? And here and other countries, they some of the companies, they still run those kind of servers because they cannot turn it off. So we can assist and aid servers and companies that need artificial intelligence to run those kind of legacy devices as well.
Is there a specific vertical industry that you see that can be more challenged to implement, considering those legacy devices? Do you have an idea of
Yeah,
which industries they have a more extensive use of legacy devices?
yeah. First, government, and second, banks. So the government itself, it is adapting to cloud right now. So a lot of companies, they're already built under cloud. So, and now some governments, they are starting to migrate to cloud. But since if it's a governmental thing, they need some kind of law, or even a kind of regulatory to tell them if they can do that or not, and someone to to compliance everything that is have to audit everything that is happening. So it's take a lot more time than it was supposed to. So they still use servers and even legacy servers, because there's the service, the data is the same since a lot of years. And banks, they is this actually the same quite problem, but banks, they are not governmental, not every bank a list. But new banks, like they have already their infrastructure on cloud. But older banks, they still use IBM servers, the old ones. They need some kind of expertise people to go and take care of that. And it's really critical if a bank get off. So if they don't, they're not available, it's really critical. So they cannot allow something like that. If they need to transfer data from a legacy device for a cloud server, if it needs a downtime, they're probably not going to do it. And that's why they still use the legacy device, because it's like, hey, so I have this legacy device, it's working, and I don't need downtime, I will not lose money with that. So they just keep the legacy device. But it get to a point where it's not safe. um, is not it doesn't provide an elasticity. So in case you get access peaks, you're gonna you have the chance of going down anyway. So I think those are the two parts that are more resistant about innovating, or even changing patterns about how they treat identity or an artificial intelligence. If they can even go to cloud, how are you going to apply artificial intelligence there? You would need an in-house coded artificial intelligence, which is really kind of difficult to do, because usually some of the artificial intelligence that we see and we use, they use some models that are online, and they access internet and things like that.
I think also to contribute on this list, I would also say Industry 4.0 and verticals, they make extensive use of Industry 4.0, like power plants, water treatment stations. So those companies, lots of Industry 4.0 devices are still legacy, and now they're getting connected to the internet. So integrating new solutions into to protect those systems, I think it also can be quite challenging. And to replace all this infrastructure require investments and can be quite expensive. Not all organizations are ready to replace all their current infrastructure in order to adapt and to make them suitable for new solutions, new cybersecurity solutions. And lots of those systems are not ready for cybersecurity. They were not thought in the security by design principle. So it can be also very expensive, and some organizations are not ready to make those investments as well.
Agreed, agreed. So, old systems they're designed to think, hey, I have a problem and I need to solve it as fast as I can. So you didn't have someone that was, thinking about cybersecurity or privacy by design or anything like that when they were built. You just needed to solve a problem. And now they use language, program language that are too old to be redesigned. They would need to create the same software again, but in a new language, and it would take time, it would take money, and probably you would have some problems to run this code in a legacy device.
And you still have to train everybody to use that, because if you invest to replace, to update those technologies, you still have to get expertise to training to use those solutions. So continuous staff training is essential to ensure that everyone understand how to use and support the new measures effectively. So that's and that can be also challenging for organizations.
Yes.
It's lots of challenges, huh? It's not
Yeah.
easy.
It's not easy.
But besides artificial intelligence and machine learning, what are the other strategies? So let's say that the organization is not ready to invest in those solutions. What do you think that they can use to increase identity protections in their environments?
If you don't have artificial intelligence to help you, or any kind of automation, I think you can have some tools that are already designed for that. So if you don't have a machine learned routine or artificial intelligence doing those things to you, you need some solution that give you visibility enough so you can do it by yourself. So you need visibility about your network assets and security assets and how you're gonna take care of them. So I think visibility is the key here if you don't have any solution helping you to do the job itself.
Yeah. And also, zero trust is also a good example. We understand that we are moving to new approaches that are not based on secure perimeter. So, implementing zero trust architecture is also a way of protecting organizations. And also, the cost of a data breach report, they don't bring specific numbers about using zero trust, but last year the 2022 cost of a data breach report found that organizations with a mature zero trust deployment were able to save $1.51 million in data breach costs compared to organizations with early adoption of zero trust.
And zero trust is really big. You
Yeah,
have a lot of technologies that use zero trust, and we could have analysts talk about zero trust, but yeah, it's something that has been around for some years now, and it's I'm glad to see that companies they're starting to think in a zero trust approach. So yeah,
yeah.
they're
And you
security
said about
driven and not problem driven.
Yeah, and you also mentioned about cloud organizations moving to the cloud. They also need to invest in cloud security tools, right? It's not just moving to the cloud. It's not the CSP role to protect the organizations. It's not their only role. There's also the customer role to implement the proper controls to protect their environments, right?
Exactly, exactly. So the fact that the organization is moving to the cloud itself is already a really good step, and because the public cloud it's safe, but for regulatory things you cannot really move ever like governmental. AWS is one of the cloud providers has one part of the cloud just for government because you have regulatories, you have and GPD, GDPR, just for those kind of companies. But just moving to cloud already adds some cybersecurity layers.
Yeah. Well, I think MFA, I usually say that MFA for me is, I think it should be the first step for organizations. If you ask me, what should I do first? Implement MFA. I think it's relatively easy compared to other cybersecurity solutions, and it considerably increase the level of protection from the users. And if you ask me what should be my first step, I would definitely say implement MFA.
Yes, we can see some institutes like Gartner already saying that, authentication with only password is a legacy way of authentication. So MFA is like standard security. Every system has to offer that because, if you only have the mail and password, it's really easy to just break your password and get attacked by someone. So yeah, I think right now it's a reality that MFA is here to stay, and people should, adopt it and get used to it.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we are heading to the end of the session, and I just want to wrap up everything. So, what is your message for? We've been seeing a hype, a buzzword. AI have been a buzzword, and understand the challenges. We understand that there's a lot of work to do. So, as we're heading to the end of our session, what is your advice, and what do you have to say for cybersecurity leaders who are watching this webinar?
My advice is adopt artificial intelligence. It can help you. It can reduce your costs. It can add, you can act more quickly. But it's still you need humans to take decisions. So you can cut costs with artificial intelligence. You can help use it to help you, but there will be events or even attacks in some cases where artificial intelligence it can help you, but it shouldn't be the person take the decision. So I would say for those people to invest in artificial intelligence, but have really clear on your mind why you want artificial intelligence to help you instead of just adopting it and try to apply artificial intelligence in everything, because that's not going to work. You're not have a clear strategy of applying that to your business. So that's my advice.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I think many people can see automation and artificial intelligence as the saviors, and they will solve everything. But at least in my opinion, even though the technology is evolving rapidly, there are still some limitations. So don't leave everything to AI. Don't leave everything to automation. For example, here at Senha Segura, we are carefully developing automated remediation. So we understand that still the user needs to take action, the administrator needs to take action, at least for the most critical actions, and implement step by step. Don't try to save the world everything and at a time. Take create a roadmap of what you're going to address first. Map your risks. Understand what are the risks that your organization is subject to. Address the more critical risks first. Make sure that you learn from the lessons that these implementations take for your organizations, and then move on. Also, invest in awareness. Even though you can have the state of the art in cybersecurity solutions, if your user clicks on a malicious links, if your user does something they're not properly trained to use the tools, that can be affect your organization. You can be victim of a data breach. So educate about security best practices and the latest threat landscape. May have a specific budget for that. From my research, I understand that approximately 10% of cybersecurity budgets are addressed to awareness, security, and awareness program. Train your third party. Many data breaches are performed through third parties. We had the Toyota data breach. They used a third party to perform data breaches. So even though you can also have the best cybersecurity policy. If your third party is affected by a data breach, then it's useless. They you have access to your organizations. So I think if you start like this, I think it's a good start, and I think you proper at least start addressing cybersecurity risks in your organizations. Well, I think that's what we had for today. And I like to thank you very much again, Guilherme, for your precious contribution in our webinar. And hopefully, our audience has at least some guidance on how to protect their identities against cyber threats.
Your outcome, it's always a pleasure to contribute.